Welcome to the Vintage Ballers podcast, hosted by Brad Coreno. On this episode, we are going to have former NBA veteran Kenny Thomas on the show. Kenny spent 4 years at the University of New Mexico, where he was one of the top players in college basketball before entering the 1999 NBA draft. After being drafted by the Houston Rockets, Kenny also spent time on the 76ers and the Kings. So without further ado, please welcome Kenny Thomas. So, thank you for being on the podcast, first of all, Kenny. I appreciate your time. And, I wanted to start off by kind of going back to your childhood. You were born in Atlanta, moved to El Paso, Texas, and then ended up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. When did you fall in love with the game of basketball?
Oh, so this is crazy because I feel like me and Jonathan have been talking about my life and my story and all of that because of my agent with the situation for the name, image, and likeness situation as far as my brand. Baseball was my first love.
Really?
Baseball was my first love. And then next thing you know, I played football, I played basketball, and then I think it all happened when I was actually a freshman in El Paso, Texas, going to Austin High School. I tried out for football, and then my basketball coach got mad at me because I played football my freshman year. And then after that, yeah, right. And then after that, I never played football again. So it was all basketball.
Now, what happened to baseball? Did you just build the passion?
I was just about to tell you. So what happened is that the ball started coming too fast, man. I was getting a little scared. But at the same time, I was getting screwed from the standpoint of I was a pitcher in first base, and then the coach kind of threw me out in the outfield. But I just kind of lost the love for it. So
it's funny. I actually had Chris Childs in the podcast yesterday, and he was saying his first love was baseball. Found that interesting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Chris Childs. Yeah. Yep. He Wake Forest?
He went to Boise State.
Oh, okay. I know who that is.
Yep, big sky guy, played for the Knicks for a while and the Nets.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was saying his first love was baseball. A lot of guys, it seems like. I mean, MJ, all those guys fell in love with baseball back then.
How about them Dodgers, boy?
I couldn't. That game, was it game 4 when the Rays won? That was one of the craziest endings I've ever seen. But that was a great series.
Yeah, it really was. I'm real happy for Magic Johnson with him being my mentor and all. He deserves that.
I read about that.
He's done a lot of tremendous stuff, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. LA's having a heck of a time right now.
Oh yeah, and with the situation with Kobe and all that, yeah, it's kind of good for LA, and
it is.
Yeah, this year's been crazy. I mean, that was a crazy situation about Kobe. So
I couldn't believe it when I saw the news. I read it like 3 or 4 times. I said, this can't be true. I
cried and boohooed all day, man. It didn't seem real. And then his daughter, that's Gigi, is very, very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, it was just a terrible. I mean, to start the year like that, kind of reminiscent of what 2020 has been, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's weird because that seems like so long ago with everything that's happened since. It seems like 3 years ago, but it was only 10 months ago.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they gave Kobe his Kobe Day and all that stuff too. So
I saw that.
The month of August, that's going to be nice.
I saw something, Kenny, interesting. I think the Dodgers now have 7 World Series championships, and the Lakers have 17, and you add them up and it's 24. Kind of.
Yeah.
That kind of gave me goosebumps.
It just gave me goosebumps again when you said that, because one of my friends he's from LA, and we're in this fantasy football league, one of 4 that I'm in.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he posted a picture of exactly those numbers, and it came out to 24. And what's so crazy, I can't believe I'm bringing Jonathan in this, but I told Jonathan as soon as the Dodgers won, posted, and I'm like, add Kobe and add Magic. He's like, why? Because of LA? I'm like, Jonathan, are you kidding me right now?
Jonathan, where are you from?
Where I'm originally from is Albuquerque, New Mexico, so where he played college ball at, and then I'm out living in Denver, Colorado, actually.
Very nice. I have a lot of friends out there. It's a great city.
Amazing.
These millennials, man, I swear to God.
They're all going to Denver, Seattle, out west. That's funny. Now, Kenny, when you were younger, did you have a favorite player in the NBA or college basketball?
I would say Charles Barkley.
Chuck, okay, love
I
it.
would say Shaq. They called me Shaq of the WAC in
Really?
college. In the WAC,
I'm trying
yeah,
to think if I
because we were in
remember
the
that.
Western Athletic Conference. They called me Shaq of the WAC.
No kidding. I mean, I definitely remember watching games. It's funny because I was in middle school back then in the 90s, and you were one of the biggest guys in college basketball in the late 90s. So
Thank you.
everyone knew Kenny Thomas, and you guys would be on the late game, 9:30, 10:30 games in the East Coast. So we would watch a lot of New Mexico Pitt games. And I always wanted to ask you before we get into your New Mexico days, but what was it like playing at the Pitt? For those of you that don't know, that's New Mexico's arena, what they call the nickname of it.
Yeah, it's wow. I just want to let people know it's New Mexico and Albuquerque, not New Mexico State. Everybody, when I say New Mexico, everybody wants to say state. I'm like, no, I never lost a state in 4 years. That was there. And say it again.
I said, there you go, audience. You heard it.
And then it's like 15,000 now, but when I was playing, it was like almost 17 and a half, almost 18. And it was standing room only that was sold out when every home game. We were right there in that home game winning streak with Kansas.
Really?
Kansas. When I think it was like 45, 50 home game winning streak, we were right there with them. And then we lost to Utah. No, BYU. BYU, actually.
Okay.
I think it was BYU. Don't hold me to that. It might have been BYU or Utah, one of the two.
Now, I saw when you were there, and for those of you who are younger listening, Kenny played for New Mexico in college, and there's going to be a lot of them who, my nephews, for example, they want to know about you guys. Kenny, so when you were in New Mexico for those 4 years from 95 to 99, they compiled, it was the greatest run in New Mexico history for the basketball program, which is incredible. Made the tournament every single year, and I believe you had a 71-3 home record. I think I read that somewhere. That's incredible.
Yes, yeah. We only lost 3 games. It doesn't even seem like it was real, but man, that place was rocking. We had a really, really good 4 years when I was there. I had a really good 4 years, and we got what was so nice is that we were ranked in the top 25 all 4 years I was in at college.
Every year, wow.
Every year. So I think the highest we got was 10, and we were 10 for like a couple of weeks. And then we lost at home, and then we dropped to like 15 or something like that. But being able to go to the tournament all 4 years, it's never been done in school. It's never been done in school history. And the fact that we were so close to going to the Sweet 16 at the same time, and that's never been done in school history. I would say about 5 years ago, UNM was ranked at, I want to say like a 3 seed. Back when I played, the 3 seed was the highest seed ever in the NCAA tournament. So they kind of screwed it up when they went to Utah and they lost to Harvard, which was pretty bad. The second game. So they should have went totally farther than what they did, but they did it. So.
And back in those days, I think you had Charles Smith. Is he the point guard back then? Yeah,
Charles Smith, and he was actually my roommate for 2 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
I still talk to him. Yeah.
He made it to the NBA for a couple of years, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did. He was in Miami for a couple of years with Pat Riley, and then he ended up going overseas. Okay. And then we also had Clayton Shills, who also I still talk to as well. Who else do we have? That was kind of it from the standpoint of names, like big names that you would know that actually had an opportunity to come out during the time that I was in college. So,
because I remember Charles for sure. And for those of you listening, not Charles Smith of the Knicks, but we're talking about the guard Charles Smith. But he was a heck of a player too. And I remember that was kind of the 1-2 punch was you and Charles. So, when did you, at what point before New Mexico, at what point did you think I could make it to the NBA?
Oh my God, man, we got to rewind because we got to go back to people telling me I'm going to be able to go to college and I'm going to get a scholarship. Like, okay, for basketball, like that's unreal right there alone. And at the same time, I just got my degree this past December.
Well,
I went back to school. Thank you. I went back to school and just, oh my God, it just seems like it was just yesterday, man. But okay, what was the question again? I kind of jumped off speed right there for a second.
In your mind, when did you first realize, like, I have a chance to make it to the NBA?
Oh yeah. So the whole college thing, they said I was gonna go to college, and then at the same time, once I got to college, they were saying that I should be drafted in the first round. I was supposed to leave after my freshman year, but I decided to stay in school all 4 years.
And what made you?
And one thing, what made me stay in school?
Yeah.
It just felt right. And then at the same time, I was trying to work towards my degree, and it was college, and I don't regret anything as far as staying in school. It actually turned out good for me, but at the same time, I had a lawsuit against the NCAA to where I got an injunction for my freshman year because they actually took a credit off of my transcript, so I was ineligible. So I had to go to court and get an injunction from the
Really?
NCAA. Yeah, so I got the injunction in the state of New Mexico, and it was all over ESPN. It was all over the news and all that stuff. So got the injunction, and then next thing you know, I'm fighting and having meetings with the NCAA for the next couple of years, and then we come to an agreement that I would sit out my senior year if I stayed in school. I wasn't supposed to stay until my senior year, but I did. So I had to sit out the first semester. So my coach pushed all the games back to the second semester. So I only missed like 9 games.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never knew that story. Interesting.
Yeah. It's one of those things that's about to start getting out because of my agent and me going around talking to these colleges and things like that to where people will know.
Interesting. So back in those days, basketball, because I was texting a couple of my friends about you being on the podcast, and the first thing they said is stretch four, like one of the original stretch fours, the kind of guy that can hit the outside shot. And back in those days, though, there really wasn't as much of that going on. I mean, it's not like today where everyone's a stretch four in the NBA and everyone, it's a completely different game. Back then, it was more about the Patrick Ewings and the, Robinsons and Shaqs and Olajuwons and people who kind of, lived in the paint. So with you, it was, you were kind of one of those guys up and coming who really transformed the NBA in the next 20 years, because now, again, the new generation of players, everyone can hit that outside shot. But back then that was it wasn't like that as much. I mean, Tim Duncan, those kind of guys kind of stayed inside. They really didn't float around outside too much. So did you know your game was a little bit different, or did you always, did you mean to play that way, or was it just fit how you wanted to play?
I worked on my all around game. It wasn't because I'm 6'6", 6'7", but at the same time, you don't have to be that guy that's always in the paint and plays in the paint. You have to be diversified. That's where I knew that I could dribble, I can handle the ball, and I can shoot. So I worked on my game from an overall perspective. And at the same time, right before my senior year, I developed a left-hand hook that I used, and I used it in the NBA. I used my hooks right and left all the time. And what was so nice is that my quickness was my advantage. But when I started playing in Houston under Rudy Tomjanovich, and I was there with Steve Francis and Charles Barkley and Hakeem Olajuwon, so at the same time, Rudy was that coach to where he liked ISOs. If you could ISO, you could score because you're going to have the defense come over and help if needed, and then that's going to open up the outside shot. So when I first started playing, I was just I was out there at the three-point line just standing and waiting till the ball came. And then if the ball came, I just let it fly. If you're hitting, you stay in. If you're not, pull me out. But 9 times out of 10, I was doing a lot of hitting. So.
Well, you beat I'm a Cavs fan being from Cleveland, and I looked at an old highlight, and it was from 2000, and you had like 12 points in the second half against us. And I kind of remember that. I still watch every Cavs game. And I think it was your rookie season in 99, 2000. And you were one of the guys, I think it was you, and I can't remember who else scored like 10 or 12 points in the second half, but you ended up beating us. We had Sean Kemp back then. That's how long ago that was.
So, oh, wow. That's
quite a while ago. Yeah. But it was kind of funny. I was watching that. And of course the highlight was against, the Cavs. But so before the draft,
I didn't start playing my first 45 games in the NBA though. I was just
This is February of 2000.
Okay.
Yep, so
okay.
Yep.
Wow.
And it would have been right after the All-Star game when Vince did all those. It was a Vince dunk or the Vince slam dunk competition, that infamous.
Oh,
game.
yeah.
Yeah, it was right after that.
I played in his charity game in Toronto for like 3 or 4 years in a row, I think.
Really?
Yeah, Vince Carter's, yeah. Good guy.
Yeah, he seems like a good guy. Can't believe he just retired. He's been in the league for 20 years. That's amazing.
Jesus, 42 and still doing it. You never
incredible.
know. He might come back.
I know.
He might come back.
That is incredible. When before we wrap up your New Mexico days, do you have when you look back at your years in New Mexico, what do you want the audience to know? What is your first thought about your 4 years there and how successful you were?
I didn't even know those numbers until you told me, until they started telling me at UNM, 71-3 in 4 years. I think that right there is just tremendous all by itself. Um, I I would have to say that me going back and getting my degree is one of the biggest highlights ever. I never thought that, not never, I don't want to say never, but I didn't think that I would go back and get it because I'm blessed in my life and being able to play in the NBA and make a lot of money. But it's something that I promised to my mother, and I actually got it done. So I just had a great time at UNM, man. I don't know how else to put it. I still have dreams sometimes that I'm playing in games sometimes, and then
Really?
it's just, yeah, and then I'll wake up and be like, whoa, okay, I can't do that no more. But I have no complaints, man. UNM was good to me. The city, it's Albuquerque's still good to me, and I'm just developing some other opportunities there as well.
Very cool. You know, when you were drafted, you mentioned how you were drafted by the Houston Rockets in '99, and they had, you know, Charles Barkley, Akeem Olajuwon, Steve Francis was one of the first picks in that draft. I think he was number 3 or 4 in that draft.
Yeah, we came in the same year. Yeah, I was
Yep.
22, and he was like 1 or 2 with Elton Brand. Yeah.
And that draft, I looked at all the names. Wow. I mean, I think
Yeah.
Ginobili was what, 57 in that draft, and you had like Jason Terry. I think, yeah, he was number 57, and
Wow.
and even Raja Bell wasn't even drafted. He, you know, I mean, there was all these guys ended up being very good NBA players. I mean, that might have been one of the most all around second round, first round loaded drafts I've ever seen. I must have come across 25 names that made some kind of name for themselves in the NBA. So, but you know, going back to that Rockets team, Kenny, what did you learn from like an Akeem Olajuwon, a Charles Barkley?
Oh my God, Charles wasn't there that much because he was there in the beginning, and then he tore his knee up,
That's right.
and then he was gone. I didn't see him again, basically.
Okay.
And then Akeem Olajuwon, Charles would always mess with me. It's one of those things to where we'll be on the plane, and next thing you know, his bag is like right by him. He could just reach over and get it, but he'll call my name and have me come get his bag.
I love it.
That's how I was treated as a rookie to a certain extent. And then Hakeem Olajuwon, I mean, he's the dream. I mean, just knowledge and wisdom perspective as far as how to approach the game. He taught me things like that. And footwork, I picked up on some of his footwork that he did. And oh my God, it seems like when you're watching that guy, it's like he was on skates or something. It just didn't seem real, some of the stuff he did, and he was just light on his feet. So I just tried to just watch him and try and pick up on some stuff.
It's funny, Kenny, because Chris Child yesterday was talking how he played with Akeem for 1 year in Toronto, actually.
Yeah.
And the first thing he mentions is the footwork. He said his footwork was, you know, it was incredible. And I guess he had played soccer, Akeem, back in, you know, day. And Akeem was my favorite athlete growing up. I just thought I'd never seen any center like him. I just, you know, when he went up against David Robinson in the '95 Western Conference Finals, and David was a defensive player of the year. I mean, he was a stud.
Yeah.
And he just made him look terrible. And I've never seen anything like that. And then he beat Shaq, and he beat Patrick Ewing, and he beat a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar back in the '80s, you know, in a series, him and Ralph Sampson. So Akeem was beyond, you know, I tell my nephews never saw him, I'm like, he was incredible. And I have a chance to play with a guy like that, I'm sure was a treat. And to learn all his little tricks of the trade, you know, I'm sure was great for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it really, really was. And then just coming in as a rookie, it's one of those things to where I just tried to soak up all the knowledge that I could. And I had a lot of time because I wasn't playing. The only thing I was doing was practicing at the time. And then when I got in, I just never looked back. It was like one of those things. The following year, I think I became a starter. And then so forth for 8 or 9 years, I was on the All-Star ballot, I think. I was doing pretty good. No complaints.
You know, looking back at your Rockets days, what is your one takeaway from those days? Did you ever get to play with Yao?
Yes, I played with Yao. That's the year I got traded. I played with Yao Ming for a couple months. And then I got traded right before Christmas to Philly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because he had this little guy with glasses following him around. He was his translator. So wherever he went, and you just see Yao, he's just smiling and just being a good guy. And English was good, but I'm pretty sure now it's gotten way better.
It's funny because him and Akeem, Shaq always talked about the centers that gave him the most problem. The first two he always mentions are Yao and Hakeem. And
Yeah, because Yao could stretch the floor being a 7-footer. Jesus.
Yep, and he was a giant, and he could hold his own
Yes.
underneath too. He was, I mean, it's a shame with him and T-Mac's injury history because those two guys were as talented as anybody, but they just couldn't stay healthy.
Oh yeah, I mean, Yao's calves are like the size of my head, man. His calves are huge, and I got a huge head.
What was he, like 3? I mean, he was 7'6", but I think he was 3 something. I can't remember his weight. I mean, he was a big boy.
He wasn't. I don't think he was that heavy. Yeah, he was. I'm not sure if he weighed more than Shaq, but it was pretty close.
Okay, yeah, because he's one of the few
Pretty
people
close.
I've seen hold his own against Shaq and not look too. I mean, Shaq would usually bully people over, but Yao held his own.
Yeah, because Shaq back then, Shaq wasn't as big as he was towards the middle or later in his career.
That's true.
And so he was. If you think about Orlando with Shaq, he was a little. I don't want to say thin because the man is not thin. He's just so big and massive as it is. But he was more in shape then. And then as he got older, he just got bigger, I think.
That's true. So the year you got traded to the Sixers, you go from Houston to Philadelphia. At that time, obviously, we all know Allen Iverson was the star there. What was it like playing with AI?
Freaking nature, man. Smallest guy on the court to a certain extent, and he has one of the biggest hearts on the court. And he was just one of those guys that dedicated himself to the game. He was one of those guys that was fully committed to the game, and he wanted to win. Only thing he saw was winning. And it's good to see where he is now, and he's still doing the different things that he's doing. But that guy was a freak of nature. I even have some jerseys that he signed for me, and I even have a couple pairs of shoes that I have in like glass cases of his that he signed for me as well.
He was, in Georgetown too when he was a freshman. I remember watching that team with him, and I think they had like Othello Harrington and Victor Page and all those guys back in '96. And I mean, what a fun team to watch.
Because he only went to college for 1 year, right?
Exactly. Yep. 1 year.
And that was '96, right?
Your freshman. You both were the same class, actually.
Yes, and what's so crazy is that I played against him in the NCAA tournament that year.
Did you
in
really?
The second round.
We
almost beat them. We had him to like 11 points in the first half, I think.
Wow.
And then he just came out in the second and just took over.
Yeah, he was. And they had on that team, Kenny, they had, I think, 5 or 6 guys that made it to the NBA.
Jahidi White.
That's right. Jahidi was. Yep.
I was guarding him. He was huge.
Jerome Williams, Junkyard man. Yeah, he was on that team.
Yeah,
that was a fun team to watch. That was back when Ray Allen was at UConn, and I mean that was just a great era of college basketball.
And then what's so crazy? What year did Ray Allen come out?
He came out in '96 as well in that Kobe draft.
See, I played against Ray Allen. Was he on UConn when I played? We played against Missouri. Ira Hodge was huge. And we played against UConn in the second game. He might have been gone already.
Okay.
Because it was my senior year. Yeah, it was my senior year. We played against UConn.
He was at Milwaukee already.
Gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
UConn
would have by 30.
UConn would have had Khalid El-Amin and Rip Hamilton. You're probably
thinking. Yeah, there we go. Rip. Yep. They beat us by 30.
Oh yeah, they won it that year. They beat Duke in the championship that year.
Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a heck of a team because I was an Ohio State fan, and that's when Ohio State had Scooney Penn and Michael Redd. The backcourt, and they beat Ohio State in the Final Four, and then beat Duke in the championship. It was a heck of
Michael Redd, the lefty.
Yep, the lefty. Yep.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Wow.
So him and Scooney played for Boston College for a while, and then he transferred to Ohio State, and for 2 years those guys played together, and they had a heck of a team. They were fun to watch. But so getting back to your Philadelphia days, in the 03-04 season, you were one of 11 players to average a double-double. And out of those 11 players, Kenny, you were the smallest at 6'7". Mm-hmm. What made you such a good rebounder?
Rebounding is dedication, man. It's just the commitment. You have to actually want it. The thing about me is I had to find a way to stay on the floor. It's the NBA. So what I said to myself, I got to stand out and do more. If it's taking charges, if it's playing defense, if it's just hustling, if it's just whatever, I had to find a way. And that's where Larry Brown really preached a lot to me more when I got to Philly. Not saying that Rudy Tomjanovich didn't. I got to Philly and it was just, Kenny, just go out there and be you. That's what he would tell me before the games. He would come in, like, stand right there and by me. He's like, Kenny, just be you. Be active, run up and down the court, and rebound, everything else to take care of itself. And he used to get pissed when I would come into the paint and I would spin. He's like, Kenny, stop spinning. Just elevate up. Nobody knows you're going to elevate up. Once you elevate, just pop and shoot. And I started doing it. Next thing you know, it's like clockwork.
Wow.
But at the same time, in Houston, I did have 22 rebounds too. So I can't take that away from Rudy Tomjanovich. Yeah.
So, when you, again, back then playing with Allen Iverson, was Iguodala on that team?
We drafted it. I say we. When I was on the team, the Sixers drafted Iguodala. Yeah.
Okay. I remember Sam Dallenberg. I definitely remember a lot of the guys back in those days.
Eric Snow.
Was Korver on that team?
Yeah, we drafted Kyle Korver too.
Yep.
When I was there.
You guys had a nice squad back then. I mean, I know they're all young, but that was a nice group of guys, but they all kind of went their separate ways eventually.
Yeah, and I think the reason I got traded is because it was Chris Webber. Chris Webber probably wanted to come and play with AI. You know what I mean? I think that's probably the only reason why I got traded, I think. But at the same time, it worked out good for me. I mean, here coming to Sacramento, I thought I was like being with Allen Iverson, him being a rock star. I thought that was insane how we were always on TV. But then I come here to Sacramento, we're always on TV. It was insane. ABC games, Sunday games, like on a regular basis. It was unreal.
So when you got traded, Kenny, what was your first thought going into Sacramento? Were you upset? Were you excited?
No, you got to think about it. Think about it like this. I was hanging out with the Maloofs, one of the brothers, before I got traded. So I kind of knew a little bit, but here I am going to play for the Maloofs. They're from Albuquerque.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And yeah, they're from Albuquerque. Their dad actually had equity in the Houston Rockets, and then I think they transitioned over to the Kings.
Okay.
So I was like, man, I'm about to be an all-star for sure. I'm about to play for the Maloofs. I was like in heaven. And then what's so crazy is that how it all happened is that I got traded, and Sacramento, the Kings were coming to Philly to play.
Oh, really?
I got traded, and then I flipped jerseys. I flipped teams and played in Philly for the Kings.
Oh my God, that had to be the most bizarre
I had
situation.
a double-double. I had like freaking 18 and like 12. So I was like, yeah, are you kidding me? And it was just clockwork after that. I didn't start the first couple games, but then after that I started.
Who was it was Mike Bibby was the point guard. Was Doug Christie there still?
No, he was gone.
Okay.
So it was Mike, Bobby Jackson.
Bobby, yep.
Brad Miller.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first year.
Peja?
Peja was there. And then Sharif Abdul-Rahim came the following year or two. And then Ron Artest came
the last
2 years.
Nope.
And who else? Kevin Martin.
Kevin Martin. Wow.
Who else? What's so crazy, man, is that you see guys coming in that's on like 10-day contracts and this, and then they go and be on another team. That happens so much. But here I am still in Sacramento, enjoying Sacramento. California is crazy right now, but we'll see what happens from that perspective.
So you've been there obviously ever since. With your Sacramento days, do you still got a lot of love from the fans? Do you still go to any games?
Yeah, wherever I go, people still give me love. As far as how hard I played, that's where really people come at me. As far as like, hey, you play both ends of the court, like, and I mean that's the best I could actually ask for. And the fact that people still recognize me, what is this? I'm about to be coming up on 11 years now. And people still recognize me, so I'm very blessed that people still recognize me, man.
You were definitely one of the more. I mean, again, I was texting a couple of my buddies, and they knew exactly who you were right away. I mean, everyone knew Kenny Thomas back then because you were, around for a decade, and in college, everyone knew who you were. So, I mean, anybody who's getting any kind of playing time in the NBA, if you're a fan, you're going to know who they are. There's no doubt about it. And
thank you.
I mean, it's the truth. That's just how it is. I mean, in Cleveland, I can tell you all. I mean, I'm a basketball nut, but even the average fan here can name a lot of the random guys that played here over the years. Could you remember all these guys? I mean, that's just how, basketball, it's not like a football team where there's 53 guys, only, 15 guys and 12 guys in a NBA squad. So you get to know them over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Thanks. Tell your boys I said thanks about that too.
I will.
For watching and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, we're all pretty big basketball fans. So I grew up a basketball fan, and I, to this day, I'm still a diehard. So, but I just appreciated your era back in the 90s and early 2000s. I thought that was, one of the golden eras of the NBA, and in the 80s.
Thank you.
And it really was. I mean, kind of what we see today. I mean, it's a different kind of game today, but a lot of it, I look at all the dynamic duos, Kobe and Shaq, MJ, Pippen, Olajuwon, Drexler, all these. I mean, there were so many rivalries back then. And college basketball in your days, Kenny, it was loaded with talent. I mean, it was so fun to watch.
Oh my God, yeah.
People stayed for 4 years. Duncan, you can go on the list, and that was fun to watch.
And then what's so crazy, you go from college and then you go to the NBA and you play against all those guys that you saw on TV in college, which is even more amazing. And here I am, they got to guard me just as much as I got to guard them.
That's true.
So it was really exciting. But then you remember when those guys were getting like the $100 million contracts with no salary cap, remember? And then they capped that off. And now, once again, it's back up. It's crazy. These guys are making so much money in such short amount of time.
They're making a ton of money now. I mean, even the role player off the bench is making big time money. So it's
the money that I made.
Yeah,
he's making more than that. And
exactly.
I made $10 million my last year, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's just a different, definitely a different game today. Was there one particular player you went up against? Who was the toughest matchup? Is there one guy that gave you a lot of problems? Or give me a couple guys.
You got to understand, I played the 3 and the 4. In Houston, I played 4-5. And in Philly, I played 3-4-5. So I played against Jamal Mashburn at the 3 in Philly. But here I am in Houston having to guard Shaq, and in Philly, but I'm not guarding Shaq. I'm just there. You know what I mean? But at the same time, he has to come out or they need to sub because I'm out there shooting threes and he can't come out, especially if I'm hitting. You know what I mean? You got Tim Duncan that's just that guy when it comes to fundamentals.
And I say, what made it was the fundamentals? We always hear that, but what made him so great? What was he just do?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was wondering, was he the kind of guy that just did everything very well, or did he do one thing in particular that you couldn't defend?
He did everything, and he's so long. He's 7 feet, but he's like way bigger than that because his arms are way long. And you got keep this in. I don't think I haven't told you this, but my last 8 years, I was going down to San Antonio and training in their facility. And I was there for like 2 months before the season started, getting ready with my trainer in their facility. They gave me 24-hour, 24/7 access to their facility. So Tim liked to swim because he's from the Virgin Islands. They even had a pool in the back, man, with jets in it. Yes, it was like unreal. And they had this huge hill in the back for like conditioning and running up. So it's like everything was there. Everything was there that I needed.
Now, why did you train in San Antonio? Any specific reason?
So my agent is from San Antonio. My old agent is from San Antonio. And the Spurs were trying to get some games going because they were bringing in kids to like evaluate them and see if they wanted to bring them into camp or sign them or whatever. So they started games down there. And then you got Manu, you got Tony, you got their squad there. And they're playing with each other while we're playing on other teams. And the games were just unreal.
I can't imagine.
Unreal.
Especially in those days. Those guys were in their prime back then. That had to be some battles.
Trust me, I was killing up in there too.
I trust you. Yeah, that was, I think that was already 15 years ago when they were in their prime, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But when you look back, Kenny, at today's game compared to when you grew up and you played in the 90s and 2000s, what would you say is the 2 or 3 biggest differences besides the shooting? We know they shoot more today from the outside, but is there anything else you see that's different about the game?
It's not as physical, man. And when I came in, it was still physical to a certain extent, but they were trying to clean it up. And there wasn't any hand checking like there was back in the day before I came in the NBA. Then at the same time, I think now, and through the course of when I was playing, I think they've gotten to the points where they're trying to create more points. It's more excitement for the fans. That's just the way it is. And I mean, prime example are the Warriors. They come down, they get them up, and it's exciting. And that's what people want to see now, more points. Back in the day, I think if you look at some of those games, even like back in the day that come on the NBA Classic channels, and you see those scores and they're like 70, 80.
You're right.
Because people were beating each other up back then, you know what I mean? And the physical play now, I don't think it's as physical. You can't do the things that you were doing before.
Do you think your game would translate well into today's game?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Do you ever wished yourself, like, I wish I played today? I wish I played in today's game.
Yeah, I do because of the money they're making. But at the same time, no. Like that's one piece of me. And I don't want to be defined as just a ball player. And at the same time, you have to be diversified. And can't play basketball forever. At some point, it was going to have to end. And it didn't end the way I wanted it to, but it is what it is. I played 11 years. I'm blessed. I'm healthy. No major injuries at all, just lower back problems. So I have nothing to complain about.
No.
Nothing.
You had a nice career for sure. And looking back at that career, Kenny, college and pro, what is your favorite moment? Is there one moment that sticks out to you and you're like, that was my favorite? There
isn't one. There isn't just one. I could tell you so many. Just meeting Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Playing against Michael Jordan. He's an owner player for the Wizards.
I can't.
And we're on the free throw line, right? And here I am because I'm one of the biggest groupies, man. You have no clue. Because I tried to collect signed stuff, everything. I even ordered jerseys of guys to where I would just send the ball boy over there to have one of them to have him sign it. Some of them said no, some of them said yes. But on the free throw line with Jordan, I look over at him and I'm like, man, can I have your shoes? Can you sign your shoes for me? He's like, he just looked at me like this. That's all he did. He just smiled, man. That's all he did was smile.
And he was what, 39 then? 40?
I think he was 40.
Yeah, it's incredible. And he was averaging 20-some points a game still.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, he was.
I mean, was he at that age playing against him? Did you think to yourself, like, I can't imagine what this guy was like 10 years ago when he was, in his prime?
No, because when we're on the floor, no, he's the enemy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't. When we stepped on the floor, it was a totally different story. But the game was over. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I asked. It's not like we were in the middle of war.
I mean, honestly, I would have asked too.
Yeah, I had to, man. He told me no. I mean, he didn't say anything. He just smiled, that Michael Jordan smile. I'm like, nothing. I can't.
You got a memory out of it.
Yeah, I have a lot. Shaq. There's one time Shaq let me lay it up, the ball in Houston, or was it Philly? He said he let me lay it up. And I was like, man, you really let me lay that up? He's like, yeah. Let me tell you why, because I like you. If I didn't like you, I wouldn't let you lay that up.
That's a great story.
I'm like, okay, thank you, big fella. I appreciate you.
That's great. Is these guys, like, I mean, we know that MJ on the court was just an animal, but, like, is there anybody on the court that you thought that played one way and that was, maybe you got on your nerve, but off the court was like the nicest guy? Is there anybody you can think about?
No, I probably don't want to think about those guys I didn't like.
I had to ask you. I always think it's it's funny looking back because you just see, you hear stories about these guys, and it's just interesting to see what they're like on the court compared to off it. But hearing that Shaq and Jordan story those two stories those are great
Oh my
stories.
God, I have so many. Jesus.
So, a couple more questions for you, Kenny. And one of them is for the younger generation that never got to see you play. What would you want them to know about your game and your legacy?
Jonathan, you might be able to answer that.
Jonathan?
Hey, I know a lot about his game now that I've been listening to all of his stories and stuff like that. But honestly, in my opinion, he seemed like a guy that he played bigger than he actually was. He worked hard. He did become the player he was because he worked farther and harder and more in depth than other guys, because he was at a disadvantage based off of positions he played at sometimes because of his height. But he was a technician. He worked on those fundamentals, and he's a guy to look up to. Good player. Great player.
Very well said.
That was very well said.
Technician. I like that. I like that technician.
I'm impressed. Yeah, that was really good.
He's good like that. He's only been around for how many months now?
Like 3, 4.
Man, you're learning quick, and you're teaching it well.
No, that was all him. Thank God I got a good one.
You got a good one.
I would follow up with Jonathan and say I was undersized and I had to work harder, and I had to do things that were quicker. And people don't realize once the ball hits the backboard, I don't care if it's below the rim, above the rim, wherever. My mindset was to get it up there on the backboard. If somebody's going to come block it, it hits the backboard, it's goaltending. Period. It's goaltending. So I use my quickness to my advantage, I would say.
That's an interesting philosophy, getting him off on the backboard like that.
Yeah, it's goaltending. It's not. It's anywhere on the backboard. Mm-hmm. It's goaltending.
Very cool. Now, last question I have for you. What are you up to these days? And Kenny Thomas Enterprises, tell us about it.
Oh my goodness. I'm so diversified in so many areas. I actually have a PPE company. Since COVID started, I got involved with the company to where I'm a principal owner, and we have PPE supplies. That's kpdglobalsolutions.com. And we have everything: masks, gloves, whatever you need, we pretty much have. We have some RFPs in there with some different government entities. We are actually exploring a situation with some tunnels right now that I brought to the table, to where there's a disinfectant inside of it, to where you go in and it sprays you and it stays on you for 24 hours. Takes your temperature right before you go in. You put your hand up and it takes your temperature.
Really?
So if your temperature's too high, yeah, it turns you away. You can't go in, even though you're going to get sprayed. It's like a metal detector. Okay. I have a bottled water company that's here local in Sacramento, which is kind of slow right now, especially with COVID and everything. I'm starting my AAU. I just started my AAU program to help these kids to get exposure under my brand. I have Philly. I'm starting a group here in Sacramento, and I have some teams in New Mexico, and we're going to all come under my umbrella. I have the Kenny Thomas Foundation, which is for disadvantaged youth, which is going to be a part of the AAU process. KennyThomas.com is my website. You can go check out some more stuff there that I have going on. And I just signed with the agent. Sorry about that. I just signed with an agent. His name is Garrick Dorn. He's going around and getting me opportunities for name, image, and likeness, as far as going around talking to schools and universities and all that. Looks like he's setting up some Zooms for me to go in there and tell my story, kind of like how I've been telling you. I'm involved. The turf, my CEO of my PPE company has a turf company that I'm involved in. Him and myself, we both own a script to a movie that we both own that we're working on trying to get out there right now.
Really?
Yes. I just got on the board for ALS New Mexico, which is the muscle disease. Mm-hmm. I just got on the board for the African American Chamber in New Mexico.
Wow.
I'm also getting on my UNM alumni board next year, and I'm also getting on probably on the board of trustees at UNM next year.
That's really cool.
What else?
I don't think you're missing anything other than you like to fine tune your golf game.
I need to get me some golf. I need to get me some golf endorsement. That's where this guy comes in on social media and things like that. And I play a lot of golf. I enjoy playing golf. What else? I think that's it.
Well, I appreciate both of you, Kenny, Jonathan, being on the show. It was awesome talking to you. And, come on again sometime for sure.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time, man.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Okay. You too, man. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, bye. Thanks, Jonathan.